one moment. There is some breaking news that we're working on. Please just hold on for a second as we get ready to go forward with you. Again, we have some breaking news that we're working on in a story, and we're going to be starting with that in 1 second. We're trying to get the most up-to-date information, so please bear with us just 1 second. And hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. I am happy to be here with you every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where you get to speak with us with your comments, your thoughts, whatever's on your mind, and tweets on Facebook, on YouTube, as well as reaching out to us on the phone. We look forward to speaking to each and every one of you. As you can see, we're looking forward to hearing all of your chats as we talk today. Sorry if I seem a little bit thrown right now. It's that we do long-form political commentary if this is the first time that you've seen the program, and there's some breaking news that's just been coming out literally just before we came on in the last 5-7 minutes. And so we're trying to update that. We want to talk about it with you. And this is in reference to the Missouri shooting. Now, a lot of people may not be familiar. It's out by, I believe it's in Missouri, Cape Girardeau. I believe I pronounced that right. I may be mispronouncing that. And initial reports were that there were some 4 people that were injured, 1 dead at the American Legion in Missouri that had been shot in southeast Missouri. That has been updated now. The current status is, and I thought I have, nope. It is now 5. It is expected that there are, and I had the update, nope. I'm going to get that. There is an expectation that up to 5 people were injured, 1 person dead. It was a shooting at the American Legion out in southeast Missouri. Now, that's a very interesting story, and it's currently updating. One of the things I find very interesting about this, and not a lot of people have heard about this, but I think it's important that we do hear about it, because in all the reports, including from the AP, which just came out an hour ago, the latest news from the American Press and also ABC News, is that officers arrived at the location after the 5 individuals had been wounded and the 1 shooter was dead. Now, there are no arrests in this, and it's very unclear what happened. Police have, in every report, police have said that there are no additional details on the shooting that have been available at this time. No one is sure what happened there. There has been no immediate answer, which is very interesting, because if this is a shooting and the police arrived, the police did not shoot or did not stop the shooter at the American Legion, who did. It sounds like there was someone at the American Legion who was armed, and that person stopped the shooter. Now, again, this is speculation. I cannot say this is a fact. This is not confirmed at this moment. But what we do know from every news media source that is out there, and again, I will go back to it so that you can see this, and I think this is important because it's a Second Amendment statement. In every single one that you will see, there is no arrests that have been reported, and and everyone says that the police have no additional details on the shooting. But they're not stating that the police were involved in the shooting in every single case, whether it's 4 individuals that were wounded or whether there were 5 people who were wounded, as we are now hearing, and that just came out from Epoch Times, saying that there were 5 people who were injured. But in each case, this happened overnight, and the police arrived after the incident had already ended. Now, if that's the case, it sounds like someone may have entered the American Legion, and that individual caused an incident and was stopped by another individual, possibly by a gun or other means. This is going to be, I believe, an important Second Amendment case. Something as an example, as we hear Joe Biden and the Democrats in office, in particular Sheila Jackson Lee, and her attempt at the H.R. 127, we're going to see a lot happen with that. Matter of fact, let me put this back on. Okay. So we could see a lot happen with that. We could see a lot of information, because it could be very similar to what we saw earlier, and actually also on February 18th, where we saw that a woman in Kentucky, Boise d'Arc, Missouri, I should say. Boise d'Arc? I think that's how you pronounce that. Who stated that the authorities had to be called because a 33-year-old man assaulted an 82-year-old woman. And the woman was able to defend herself, and the man was shot after assaulting the 82-year-old woman. So in that case, again, H.R. 127 would have harmed, that would have prevented that woman from being able to defend herself. Think about that. Because without H.R. 127, without the ability to have the Second Amendment to defend herself, what would that 33-year-old man have done to her? See, that's why we have a Second Amendment, to defend ourselves. Police eventually will show up, just like they did at the American Legion in Missouri. But they showed up after everything had happened. And the same thing with the 82-year-old woman. After the 33-year-old was shot, that's when the police arrived. That 82-year-old woman could have been dead if she didn't have a firearm to defend herself. I think that's something that we don't hear enough about when we hear people talking about H.R. 127, and we hear them talking about, well, gun control. We have to have gun control. Well, hang on, because we have people who need it. There's a reason why we have the Second Amendment. And if we take it away and say, well, the police will come and take care of it, are they going to be able to be there in time? Are you sure they're going to take care of it? Police aren't at every single corner. So I think these are two cases that are very important. And by the way, hello, Anne. It's very good to see you. I'm glad everyone's with us. And yes, Anne, I see you say, if that's the case, thank God for good guys with guns. If that's the case, I agree. Now, again, there's some speculation. And I have seen at least one tweet right now from Richard Cusiol, who is a and I want you to see this. So he is a university professor, as he states on Twitter, and an author of Man of Seven Shadows. And he's intimating that it could be politically motivated, that this could be something about Trump and Biden voters. I hope that is not the case. I hope that the rhetoric that we have heard from AOC, from Representative Presley, from Maxine Waters, Joe Biden himself, I hope that their rhetoric has not pushed the country, especially with this attack on anyone who happens to be on the right, who voted for President Trump, anyone that disagrees with the progressive ideology. I hope that is not the case, because if that is the case, then we could see many more of these incidents. It is troubling to me. But again, talking about the shooting in Missouri, we have to keep, there's a reason why the major news media have not talked about this, I believe. I mean, tell me, whenever we hear about these mass shootings, we almost always hear about what type of weapon it is. Usually it's an assault rifle. And if it isn't an assault rifle, what they call an assault rifle, an actual semi-automatic rifle. If it's not a semi-automatic rifle, that drops it down a tier on terms of national coverage. If we find out that it's someone, a good guy, a Samaritan with a firearm saving people, it drops it down another category. News media don't really cover that on the national level. They cover that maybe on a local level. But if it winds up being a semi-automatic firearm and it happens to injure a lot of people, and there is no good guy with a firearm and that person's taken down by the police, then it's national news, it's spread out, and it's the reason why we have to get rid of the Second Amendment. What about the reasons why we should keep it? Like the 82-year-old woman that I just discussed, and also possibly the American Legion in Missouri. Now, if you think I'm wrong, it's perfectly fine. That's why we have this chat on Sundays, because we need to talk about this. We need to understand what are the consequences of the gun control that we hear that Joe Biden on Tuesday has said that he is looking to move forward. He's looking to make H.R. 127 a reality. And for those who haven't seen the video on that, H.R. 127 would require that you have to have an $800 license, insurance. You have to go through licensing and the cost of that licensing and fingerprinting and the background checks. You have to get a check from a psychologist, which is also an additional cost. You have to also go through a required program from the state. That's just to get the license for the gun and the bullets. That doesn't count buying the firearm itself. This is basically putting up a barrier of cost so that only the rich are able to afford firearms and the poor, blacks, women, others, would never be able to get it. So that's something of very big interest. And again, we're looking at the news. We're trying to keep up with this. We'll be updating throughout the day as we go on with the program. And if there is more breaking news on this, we're going to try and find it. If we miss it and you see it, please let us know, because we do want to keep up on what's going on in Missouri. And by the way, it should be without having to be said, but let me say it. We, of course, give our condolences to all of the members, everyone who's a family and friend of those who have been injured. We hope for the very best with them. We hope that they will be okay and that none of the injuries get any worse. It shouldn't have to be said, but these day and age, I guess it does. So what we were going to talk about, besides that breaking news, we wanted to talk about some other things as well, which involve our veterans, that involve mental health, which the biggest factor dealing with most of these mass shootings is, in fact, mental health. And we wanted to talk about something that you probably have not heard about in the news. I doubt most people heard about this. It came out on February 16th. Gary Sinise has launched a mental health network for veterans and for first responders. And I'm willing to bet money that 80% of the people watching this program or anywhere in America have no idea this happened. This was not big news anywhere. No one really covered it, and they should. Now, we know that Gary Sinise has been a stalwart advocate of United States veterans and also for those first responders and those who have disabilities because of wartime or from PTSD. He's been an incredible supporter going out. He has a band. He goes out and he plays specifically for veterans and to raise money for their efforts to help them with PTSD, post-traumatic stress. He's been a great guy. You know, I really, really applaud and thank. I wish we had more entertainers who actually, and there are one or two, like Don Cheadle. I also give him credit. The man was an advocate for the genocide that happened down in Rwanda and the Sudanese genocide of the Sudan. And I applaud him for taking the step to actually do something, not to just cheerlead from their Hollywood homes, but from actually doing something, being involved, putting their money where their mouth is, and actually standing by their efforts. And that's why I want to tell everyone about Gary Sinise. The organization is called the Gary Sinise Foundation Avalon Network. It is the Avalon Network. And again, that is for veterans and for first responders suffering from post-traumatic stress. please, if you hear about it, do support it, do help them out. I think this is a very good cause, and I think more people should hear about that. Because you just don't hear about these things. I mean, it's amazing that we have so many news channels, we have so many outlets, and the news media, especially online, are so terrified of individuals like this program, like others, like Tim Pool, like Steven Crowder, like Joe Rogan, so many others that come out and actually approach the news from a different aspect, either breaking news or looking at stories that no one is talking about, and we really should. I mean, there's no reason why we aren't talking about Gary Sinise's network, the Avalon network, for the military. Let's give our military the support they deserve. They've put their lives on the line. It's the least, literally the least that we can do. Now, also remember, please, not only can you, like Ann has, you can always text us either on YouTube or Facebook or Google. We are live on all three at this moment. And of course, you can also call into the program at 607-242-1582. We always love to hear from everybody, whether you agree or disagree with us. So we're going through a bunch of things. And I have to say, the news of what's going on in Missouri really, really troubled me. To see that individuals in the American Legion were shot, that's something that's really, really bugging me. So I'm sorry if I seem a little thrown, but literally some of the news was just breaking. It's just been announced that there's now 5 individuals injured. And so that's throwing me off of what I wanted to do today. But of course, this is a program with you, where I'm talking with you, and your thoughts are first and foremost, because we believe in the First Amendment. We believe in free speech as much as we can do, even though Facebook, Twitter, YouTube don't necessarily agree, and they often block us, and it looks like they're slowing down our signal right now, even though we're about 4 times as much signal as we need to reach you. So if you're seeing a delay right now, that's coming from Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. They're doing it. It's not our system. So we wanted to also talk about Joe Biden, because the media has such an interesting way of looking at Joe Biden right now. I mean, they love Joe Biden. They really do love this man. And they can't help but show it. Did you notice recently, instead of talking about the shooting, the 82-year-old who defended herself with a firearm, instead of talking about that, instead of talking about the Avalon network, the news and media wants to tell you that Joe Biden is going to bed early. They want to tell you that Joe Biden is playing video games. What's that got to do with the country? What's that got to do with COVID-19? What's that got to do with the unemployment rate, the recession that we're going through right now? What's that got to do with what's happening in the Middle East and our Middle East policy? They want to talk about, I mean, literally, here are some of the issues. And by the way, folks, as always with any of our programs, at the end of the program, you can go to YouTube, and in the description, you will see links to every story that we're talking about so that you can read it in full for yourself and to come to your own conclusion. But this one, and this is coming from the Washington Times, talking about how the media is talking about how early that Joe Biden goes to bed, and the fact that he likes to have a fireplace running. We've heard about obviously Mario Kart. Joe Biden playing Mario Kart with his granddaughter at Camp David. Okay. About his walking the dog. Does anyone really care about that? About the fact that he has 2 dogs at the White House. One of them being a shelter dog. We've never had a shelter dog before. Really? Who cares? I mean, I love my dog. And I love all dogs, but I don't really care that this is the first time that a shelter dog is in the White House. That's really not important. Not when we have to deal with unemployment, not when we have to deal with COVID. We have a recession going on. We have someone trying to destroy the Second Amendment. We have more executive orders that have been done by one president in less than a month than most presidents in their entire 4 years in office. You know, about the fact that Joe Biden's going to church and has a bagel. Ooh, big news there. Do we really care? And of course, E! Online went for Biden loves ice cream. So does Nancy Pelosi. That doesn't make either of them good people. That doesn't make them legislate good laws. But I mean, that's the whole idea. It's about the emotion. They're trying to turn everything around from, well, Trump was the devil incarnate and everything he did was wrong, no matter what. I mean, he only got nominated for 4 Nobel Peace Prizes. And he demonstrably lowered the amount of war in the world, increased the net peace in the world. But he was evil. And Joe Biden, he's great because he's going to take away your Second Amendment. He's going to allow the internet to restrict what you can say and destroy free speech. But he likes ice cream and he has a shelter dog. I don't know, maybe it's me, but do you think which one of those do you think is more important? Even as the internet, again, continues to, the internet overlords continue to mess with our feed. So I do thank you for sticking with us here. And by the way, if you're having problems with the YouTube feed or the Twitter feed, usually those are the two that are blocking us. I would suggest go to the YouTube feed and you should be able to see and speak with us more easily that way. But I mean, that's what we're hearing right now. A lot. We're hearing people talk about how Joe Biden, he goes to sleep early, he doesn't work, he's not a workaholic. I want a president who's a workaholic. I don't care what, left, right, doesn't matter. I want a president who's going to work hard. Oh, he's not playing golf, he's playing Mario Kart. Who cares? I don't think that's important. That doesn't endear the president to me. You know what endears the president to me? Lowering the unemployment rate. How about we do that? How about we open up the country? Maybe that would help people more. Maybe instead of giving people another stimulus check, which will be followed by yet another stimulus check, how about we just let people get back to work? How about we stop increasing inflation by giving out all these free checks because it's not free money? How about we actually just let people go back to work? Because kicking these problems down the road, that's not going to help anyone. Like we've talked about on this program before, we've looked at the numbers. We're in trouble in the second half of 2020. And it's about to get worse. In fact, there's some news breaking from Russia that's going to throw everything off. If you thought that we were done with COVID, and some people are saying that we are done with COVID maybe as soon as April, that we're going to reopen, guess what? It's not over. Dr. Fauci is now saying that you have to wear a mask until 2022, which means forever. That we will probably have social distancing going on until 2022, which means forever. And guess what? Once we get done with COVID, which will be around for decades, according to the W.H.O. and many medical experts, to some variation will be out there. Guess what? There is a new thing coming down the pipeline. There is a new virus that's going to be affecting the world, and it will probably get huge headlines. Now, before I tell you about that, when I said we could see as soon as April that the COVID virus will no longer be affecting people, I'm not just making that up. Here's the article by Marty McKay. We'll have herd immunity by April. COVID cases have dropped 77% in 6 weeks. You know, when you look at the news media tonight, Listen for them saying that the national cases have dropped by 77%. When was the last time you heard the news media tell you about how much COVID went down? They'll tell you how many cases there have been in the United States. They will tell you how many deaths have occurred in the United States. They won't tell you how many people recovered. They won't tell you how many people were vaccinated in total. They won't tell you how many people have, how many cases have dropped off of the total. There's a reason why you're hearing only the worst of the negative news about COVID. It's about fear. And according to this article, and Dr. McCary, they are a professor at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine and Bloomberg School of Public Health, chief medical advisor to Sesame Care, and author of The Price We Pay. So this is in their opinion, and they believe that, and I quote, some medical experts privately agreed with my prediction that there may be very little COVID-19 by April, but suggested that I not talk publicly about herd immunity because people might become complacent and fail to take precautions or might decline the vaccine. But scientists shouldn't try to manipulate the public by hiding the truth. As we encourage everyone to get a vaccine, we also need to reopen schools and society to limit the damage of closures and prolonged isolation. Contingency planning for an open economy by April can deliver hope to those in despair and to those who have made large personal sacrifices. We have been talking about domestic abuse, suicide prevention, overdoses, and drug abuse and alcohol abuse since February of 2020. That is what we have been seeing. We've seen nearly exponential increases in all of those areas because of the isolation, because of the closures, because of not being able to work, be able to go out, to constantly being hidden by masks and to be shunned from people. And God help me, if you have been, here's the suicide hotline, 800-273-8255. And the domestic abuse line, national, these are national numbers, 800-799-7233. They are always available, and even at the worst of the closures from COVID-19, they were open, not 24 hours a day, but they were still open for you to call. There is always someone there to help. But we have to think about that. That's why the W.H.O, the European director of the WHO, said lockdowns are the worst thing we could possibly do. We need to turn that around. And we have a doctor right now from Johns Hopkins School of Medicine saying herd immunity is the most effective way, that people get COVID and then people become immune to COVID. That's the best way. Not the vaccine, not the masks, not double masks, not triple masks, not 5 masks all at once, because that's all coming down the line. We just live. We have a 97% survival rate. That is the way, not the fear, but the reality. But I can tell you that fear is very effective for politicians. I mean, think of all the things politicians have been able to get away with, like Governor Cuomo. Think about what he's been able to get away with. He got to write a book about how great a leader he was, and to make hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars off of this book. He won an Emmy. He won an Emmy for being a great leader. And in the meantime, he is corrupt. He is so corrupt that he knew how many people, that his orders were killing people by the thousands. And instead of telling anyone and having any sympathy, having any kind of humanity and saying, my God, I'm sorry, I screwed up, we need to fix this, instead of doing anything like that, he instead blamed everyone else and continues to blame everyone else, and says that he did everything right, even though he's being caught red-handed. His own administration Melissa DeRosa, secretary for the governor herself, has admitted to Democrats, not the public, admitted to Democrats that they knew for a fact that their numbers were wrong, that they killed twice as many people as we think. And they didn't tell anyone because politics. They were afraid of the politics. They didn't want to get caught, and they were afraid of politics because Governor Cuomo wants to run for governor again. I don't know. This infuriates me, and I think it would infuriate anyone. And it's because of the fear. That same fear that was running around, because the numbers have been in question since June of 2020. That's already been published. It's already documented, well documented. Since June, people have been saying those numbers don't look right. The nursing home deaths don't seem correct. And Governor Cuomo just ignored it. No, that's not true. No, don't believe that. You've got to be afraid. Don't worry, I'm taking care of you. You're terrified, aren't you? Because people are dying. Everyone's dying around you. People are just dropping dead everywhere because of COVID. And I'm going to take care of you. Don't listen to these people telling you that I killed people. Don't listen to these people who are saying that I'm lying about the numbers. I'm here to protect you. I'm with government. That's what Cuomo was saying. I'm paraphrasing massively, but that's what he was basically saying. John Solak mentions, remember when the Broome County COVID numbers were suddenly retracted? Yeah, and that's been happening a lot. We've seen reductions in Pennsylvania and Ohio where the COVID numbers were reduced after review. You know, the guy in the motorcycle, famously, it was well covered, a gentleman in this, what was it? I think it was March or April, got in a motorcycle accident and died, and it was marked as COVID. I mean, it's because of the fear. Everything became COVID. And in that fear, that was used against us to allow Governor Cuomo to make money and to gain, basically Emperor Palpatine, unlimited power to be able to go out there and just at a whim close businesses that have closed forever. 30% of businesses in New York State have closed forever. Estimates are about 40% of businesses may close within the next 6 months. It's already too late. Doesn't matter if there's new federal funding. They have already reached the limit, and they're on the precipice of going too far. Another 40% of businesses, on top of the 30% that already closed, may close now within the next 6 months. And it's because we're being told, be afraid, don't worry, government will take care of you. And matter of fact, John, you bring up Broome County. Broome County is where I live in New York State. And in Broome County, New York State, County Executive Jason Garnar essentially told the public that they were in solitary confinement. He called it Operation Crush COVID, and told the American people, residents of New York State, you can't leave your house except for every other day. That's it. You're in solitary confinement. You can't get out, and that's a problem. It was insane. No wonder we've seen suicides up dramatically, well over 30% increase. We've seen domestic abuse skyrocketing. This is terrifying. John Solak mentions Democrats like AG Attorney General, New York State Attorney General James, and DA Cy Vance need to sacrifice Cuomo in exchange for going after Trump so hard. You know what? It's not a tit for tat, and it's all politics. AG James is going after, and well, you tell me, folks. I believe that AG James is going after Cuomo because she wants to go for governor. And if you knock out Governor Cuomo now, well, it makes the next election wide open. And she'll be seen as a hero, and heroes who take down corruption and corrupt politicians tend to win elections a lot more than anyone else. Because where was Attorney General James in May of 2020? September of 2020, November of 2020. The corruption has already been there. The Cuomo administration had the numbers and knew that they were killing our brothers and sisters, our mothers and fathers and grandparents. They knew it. And they had those numbers. And I have great difficulty believing that more than just Cuomo's secretary, Melissa DeRosa, and Governor Cuomo were the only two people who knew about this. More people in that administration knew about it. More people in New York State knew about it. And if Attorney General James is really the hero she wants to make herself seem like, then where was she for the months as news media after news media, after there was FOIA reports, Freedom of Information Act request after Freedom of Information request, constantly saying, where are the numbers? Show us the proof. Where was she then? I mean, I'm glad she's doing something now, but I think it's all about politics. Yeah, maybe she's using it so that she wins favor with Trump supporters that are being demonized in New York State and around the country right now. But I think it's more because she wants to run for a political office for the governor. And this is her ticket in. I could be wrong. And if you think I'm wrong and you think I misunderstand that, please, that's what we have chat for, and that's why you can call in 607-242-1582. We'll be happy to hear your comments. Tell us where we got it wrong. Tell me where I'm misunderstanding the news. Tell me why my conclusion is incorrect, because I think we got it right. And I think that's why you're hearing about that. But there's something else that you're not hearing about at all. And this is the fear that has been so effective. The fear that allowed Cuomo to do what he has done is the fear that's going to be coming back to you. Because as we get rid of COVID, as these numbers go down, as we just heard from one of the doctors at Johns Hopkins, next thing is Russia. The bird flu. Bird flu's back. And the bird flu is now gone to human beings. Human beings can now get the bird flu. This was reported today. It came out, it was also some news that just came out before we came on air. And Russian authorities say they have detected what they believe is to be human infection with the bird flu H5N8. The World Health Organization, the WHO, has confirmed. The WHO notified, Russia notified the WHO of the possible strain, quote, if confirmed, this would be the first time the H5N8 has infected people. This is terrifying. Now, Anne mentions COVID hysteria is unreal. People drink the Kool-Aid about masks. I was out snowshoeing earlier in a nature preserve where I live in Maine and came across two people wearing masks in the middle of nowhere. Nuts. I can't help. If you're in the middle of nowhere, really, why do you need the mask? If it's you and your significant other and you're the only two people in miles and miles, or you're walking past someone outside, are you really going to get COVID? You know what? People are getting COVID. Here's the thing. People were wearing masks indoors in their own homes without going outside, and they caught COVID anyway. It's in the air. You're going to get it if you're going to get it. There's no way to stop it. In fact, even the vaccines tell you that they're not 100%, that they're not going to protect you against the British version, the Brazilian version, the South African version, or the regular version of COVID-19. In fact, there was a case the first case of the British variant of COVID-19 was found in Colorado from someone who never traveled and wasn't around anyone who ever traveled to the United Kingdom. How do you get it in America with someone who has never been to the United Kingdom? It's in the air. But can you imagine if it's being transmitted by birds? That means it's global. And that means that the bird flu, the Russian bird flu, H5N8, that would make it the Russian bird flu because we name these viruses after cities or countries that they come from. You know, like the Spanish flu. This would be the Russian bird flu, British mad cow, or, you know, the Chinese virus, the Chinese COVID. They're all named after their, you know, Ebola, Zika. Those are places in the world. Those aren't scientific words. They're names of places. We name diseases after the places they come from. John mentions, can we go for the 2nd June without graduations, proms, and weddings? John, I think we will. Because it seems like if we see COVID go down in the summer like it did last year, like the flu normally does every summer, if we see we're out of this flu season, the COVID season will go and we'll see things warm up. People will be outside and they'll be okay. And we should go back to normal. In fact, our economy is counting on the fact that we must go back to normal. And if we don't go back to normal, I think it'll be because of the Russian bird flu. Now, you can tell me, folks, if you think I'm wrong, if you think I misunderstand. And you may not have heard about this yet. It just came out with CNN literally just before the show started. But we follow these kinds of things, and that's important. And I don't know that a lot of people are telling you about that. But I think it's critical that we start paying attention to it. And I think you're going to hear a lot more about it, and people are going to be terrified about it because they're going to say, oh my God, this is the next thing. You have to keep wearing that mask. That we already heard Dr. Fauci say you're going to wear until 2022. And you're going to wear it forever. You're never going to not have it. We are never going to get away from all of these restrictions on our freedoms. We're always going to have businesses that are going to be restricted to some degree, that they're going to be the plastic barriers, all of these wearing masks indoors, limits on the number of people that can gather in direct violation of the First Amendment, because the First Amendment doesn't say you can only gather when, you know, the government thinks it's okay for you to gather. It says you have the right to gather peaceably, period. Just like we saw with BLM throughout the summer, just like we saw in Washington, D.C. before January 6th, like we've seen happen across the country. People can peacefully gather, period. Or at least we should, but I don't know that we're going to. John Solak mentions, if infected, we just request the Trump treatment protocol since that seemed to work well for him. Oh, you mean bleaching the blood? I believe that's what it was called. And also the it's a chlorine. It's the malaria treatment drug that he used that we were told was absolutely horrible, and now they're using it. Mike Bowie mentions, you watch CNN. I watch all news media. I don't watch TV. So let me clarify that. I don't watch TV, but I follow the BBC, Israeli Times, Al Jazeera, Iranian news occasionally. I watch Wall Street Journal, New York Times, NBC, CNN, Fox News, Epoch Times. So I literally watch every side. I look at the left, I look at the right, I look at local news, I look at national news and international news. It's the only way to really know what's going on. It's the only way. Now, do I believe CNN? Do I think they're the greatest channel out there? Absolutely not. But as one of many sources, which I always verify and confirm, see, that's what we all need to do. We can't trust any one news media. You want to tell me that you don't like Fox? Fantastic. You tell me that you think Epoch Times is too conservative. Okay. Well, I can tell you the same thing on the left, from LA Times, the New York Times, Washington Times, Washington Post. Huffington Post. There's lots of it. You have to take, if you look at the same story from multiple sources, 9 out of 10 times you're going to see that there's going to be the quotes will be different. The context of the quotes will be different. So the more you read, the better it is. But at the moment, this is a source, and for the show, normally in my videos, if you notice, I almost always only quote the left because I am a Republican and a conservative, so I always get attacked. And every time I say something that the left doesn't like the fact that I'm a black Hispanic who's a Republican conservative, they go crazy. They lose their minds. Last week on the show, I was told I was soulless. Why? Because they didn't agree with me. Because I didn't agree with BLM. So I quote as many left-leaning sources as I can, because what are they going to tell me? The facts are wrong? Well, then these are your left-leaning sources. If you don't agree with that, then there's a problem. So that's why I use CNN sometimes on this program, usually backed up with other sources as well. Hang on one second. So we wanted to talk a little bit about bird flu, because that goes also into the fact we were talking about COVID. We're wasting money. We are throwing money hand over foot out the window, and we are destroying our nation, all in the name of COVID. And it's kind of like what we see with Governor Cuomo, just making up different rules on different days, and we are throwing money hand over fist. Did you know that the current bill, the $1.9 trillion COVID relief, which will wind up being about $1,400 per American, that's a $1,400 check that you've heard Joe Biden talk about, which was supposed to be the $2,000 check, but now it's a $1,400 check. So it's another $1.9 trillion. Now, the last time we spent $1.9 trillion, we were sending over $10 million to Pakistan for gender studies. We paid $300 million for the country of Jordan to run its government. Why did we spend money like that? I have no idea. We spent $1.2 trillion on the rest of the world, and we spent roughly about $600,000 on American citizens. That's that $600 check that you got. Now, Joe Biden is talking about another $1.9 trillion. That would make the national deficit about $31 trillion if this goes through. $31 trillion in debt. And there's a problem. Well, the first problem, and I don't know if you've heard this, and this comes from the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. It was on February 17th. That is a nonpartisan group made up of individuals who have advised presidents, Democrat and Republican presidents, since Jimmy Carter and beyond. And they have determined that, and they looked over Joe Biden's bill, which most of us have not done. And when we look at the bill, what we find out is only 6% of the entire bill is spent on COVID-19 and COVID-19 relief. 15%, more than double, is going to be spent on long-term priorities of the Democratic Party. And if you're wondering what those might be, well, that includes minimum wage, $15. Did you know that the minimum wage being $15 will stop COVID? Because I can tell you, it's stopping my feed. It's stopping Facebook and Twitter and YouTube from letting me talk, even though I am quoting a credible source, the Committee for a Responsible Federal Government. You can see it on here yourself. And do you see, John Solak mentions, do you see an end to the Zoom meetings on the local level on February 28th? No, I do not. No, I do not. I think you're going to see Zoom is a standard now. And it's not just because of COVID-19. It's financially, it makes sense. It's the same reason that we're watching all kinds of businesses leave. They're just abandoning Manhattan. They're abandoning LA. They're getting out of the big metropolitan cities. Why? It's too expensive and no one's there. Why spend the money when you can, how many businesses have gone from New York to Florida and Texas? Because it's cheaper and you don't need to spend the money. And they figured out that they can do many of these jobs and many of these businesses can work remotely, selling stuff on Amazon or online and having it delivered to people. And if you can do that, why in the world would you spend in New York City $250,000? Some businesses are paying somewhere between $80,000 to $250,000 in rent a month. Why would you spend that money? Same thing goes for governments. Why is your local government, and I actually agree with this, why should they not use Zoom meetings? And I mean for the general special meetings, there are special reasons why they should, but generally, I'm going to come to your comment in 1 second, Tammy, but it cuts down the cost and it gives people access. Now, I do believe the best way to do both worlds is to put the meeting on Zoom and have it in person so that those who want to be in person and speak can do so, and they don't have to worry about whether their phone has a good connection, if they can be heard properly, and it stops someone from just hitting a button and cutting you off. And I think that's an important factor there too. But I think it's also important to be able to that if I don't want to go out, or if I'm at work or I'm driving home, that I have the ability to still be able to be involved with my community in local meetings. So Zoom does that. So it's a mix of both, but I absolutely do not think they're going to ever stop the Zoom meetings. I think that's going to be the way for the future. Tammy mentions, and thank you for your comment, John. I love it. Tammy mentions, love your program, Michael. Thank you, Tammy. We love you being here as our audience. Listening here up in the woods above Deer Park, Washington, on Horseshoe Lake, Eastern Washington. Wow. Okay, that's on the West Coast. Thank you. You are able to say nearly exactly what I think, only much better. Keep the spirit, and we must never give up on the fight to keep our Constitution intact. Thank you for what you do. Thank you, Tammy, for the comment. I appreciate it. We thank you for that. We love you guys. And that's why we do this every week. Because it's not like we're getting paid. We don't get paid for this. We're not CNN. We don't get paid. We're not MSNBC. I am definitely not Don Lemon. I'm not here. I'm not getting paid to lie to you. I'm here to talk with you and be honest with you. And that's what we do. And we believe in the free speech to hear from you, whether you agree or not, to hear it all and to have a conversation. Because that's the way America has always moved forward, in having the conversation and, making the best choice we can with all the information, not just, well, the left said so, so that's what we have to do. Tony mentions that we're being zucked. Yeah, I know. Facebook, I've been watching. My signal right now fluctuates between about 3 to 4 times, as much power being sent out as is necessary. And Facebook, because I keep saying certain key words. I'm talking about COVID-19. I'm talking about Mayor Cuomo. I'm talking about the Russian bird flu. I'm talking about the shooting in Missouri. So when I talk about these things, well, we already know. Facebook hates that. They hate anyone talking about something like that. And so they're just suppressing us. So is Twitter. Yeah, Tony, they are. This is the other form of censorship. There's the censorship that just says, "Oh, you're kicked out." Like what happened to Trump and over 80,000 other Americans. A lot of people don't notice. The same time that they got rid of President Trump, they got rid of over 80,000. Actually, I believe the most recent number was 120,000 people on Twitter were just gone, just wiped out, deleted. One of the bigger ones was Project Veritas. Just wiped their page out. No comments, no questions, just gone. Why? Because they're reporting on things that Twitter doesn't want you to hear about, because they don't want you to have free speech, because they don't think you should know things. You should just listen to what you're told and do what you're told, because, government's here to help you. Do what you're told. Don't ask questions. Tuskegee experiments, look it up. Do what you're told, because government's here to help you. And that's the problem. And so that's one way that they get rid of people, just completely get rid of them. The other thing they do, though, is a little more controversial, and they just shadow ban. They make it hard for people to hear, to participate, to be involved. Oh, you can't find that webpage? Well, you just had to go through, the super secret entrance, and then you'd be able to find it. Oh, you can't hear what's being said? We're sorry that you are suddenly having interference, even though everything else on Facebook, on your page, you look at anything else, perfectly smooth, no interruptions. But this one feed, we have some problems there. You know what? I didn't have this much of a problem when I was covering BLM and Antifa in Binghamton, New York, and Broome County, New York, live. They didn't interrupt a single second of that live stream as I was walking around with varying signals outdoors, and Facebook had that perfectly fine because they like covering and having people talk about BLM, and they thought, being black, that I would be a supporter, which I wasn't, and I'm not. But instead, they got the opposite on the show, and they just don't like that, so they suppress it. And that's the problem. When you can't look things up, when you can't find out for yourself, when they're actively telling you, don't look, we're not going to let you look, because we don't trust you to make a decision. That's what they're actually saying. The censorship is saying that we don't trust you. You're going to wear 2 masks, you're going to wear 3 masks, you're going to wear 5 masks. Why? Because we said so. And we don't trust you to figure out that what you actually need is just one N95 mask and not your scarf. Okay. And that makes a big difference. But they don't trust you to do that. They don't trust you to tell you, oh, pay a little extra, get an N95 instead of getting that dollar store cloth mask, because it's not working and it's not making you safer. It's just giving you the illusion of safety. But they want that illusion, because that illusion allows them to have power, to spend $1.9 trillion on things that have nothing to do with COVID. Nothing to do with COVID. Because, again, I'll say it again, what does the minimum wage have to do with COVID? It's like Governor Cuomo saying, well, COVID is active after 10 o'clock. Now he changed it to 11 o'clock because he's in trouble. So COVID's active after 11 o'clock. That's not scientific. Neither is saying, well, you have to get paid $15 an hour or else you'll get COVID. What? COVID has, it knows your checkbook. It's connected to the IRS. Let's think about that for a second. It has a clock timer, so it wakes up at night. It's not nocturnal. I mean, let's be honest. It's not nocturnal. Nor does it have the ability to pick and choose. Oh, you're sitting down. COVID won't hit you. You're standing up. COVID's got you. You didn't eat food with your drink. Well, COVID's going to get you. Oh, you had a meal. COVID can't get you now. Come on. That's not science. Spending money on minimum wage, pushing minimum wage, $15 minimum wage, is not going to affect whether or not you get COVID. Although it does seem to mean to me that if we're willing to spend more, we want to increase the minimum wage, that means you want more people to work. Well, actually, you want fewer people to work, because more people are going to actually get fired than actually get minimum wage. By the way, in case you wondered, and we covered this earlier this week, going over the economics, only 1.6 million people in America actually make minimum wage. It's about 2% of the working population of America. 1.6 million people, 2% of all workers actually make minimum wage. Almost all of them are 18 and younger or retired over in their 60s and 70s, almost entirely. So moving the minimum wage up to $15 an hour will actually, according to the Congressional Budget Office, will actually, a CBO, will actually cause 3.5 million people to lose their job. Even though 1.6 million people, more than double, are going to lose their job as compared to the number of people who will have their pay increase. And by the way, that will then turn into more expensive everything, all your food, everything will be more expensive. And once that happens, the poor will be even more poor than they started off with. It happens every time. We have proof of this. It happened in Washington State. It happened in Manhattan. Just go back in time. We've done the study. We've reported the studies. When you increase the minimum wage, Manhattan, all the workers there had their jobs, I think it was a reduction of 30%. Businesses closed, and the businesses that didn't close cut their workforce, cut the number of hours, took people from full-time to move them to part-time, stopped paying for their health insurance, and these people had to go on to government aid. That is a fact. It's not a guess. It's not a question. It is a fact. It happened in Manhattan when they moved it to $15 an hour. You can look it up. New York Times covered it. So did the Wall Street Journal and Forbes. So there you go. Tony Zoranda mentions, quote, "Hello, we're from the government and we want to help," end quote. Yeah, Ronald Reagan, he's right. And we see it on the national level. We see it on the local level. And, you know, when I say that, and it's being reported by the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, that we're wasting most of the $1.9 trillion they want to spend on political ideas, that's not the least of it. There's another problem that comes with that. Inflation. Now, this is something that almost no one talks about. Inflation. Every time we spend $1.9 trillion, we wind up increasing inflation. And I've shown it on the show a couple Sundays ago, as well as a couple of the other videos we've done during the week. If you look at the chart, it is like Mount Everest, watching inflation go up, the value of your dollar go down. That means you can't buy as much. It means that you can get paid $15 an hour, but each dollar is going to be worth 50 cents. It means you're going to pay twice as much. And if you think I'm exaggerating on that, a dollar in 2009 was worth $1.23 today. You had more money in January of 2009 than you do right now. Getting the same $100 will be worth $77 today. So that's inflation. It is literally taking money out of your pocket, rolling it up and lighting it on fire. That's what the government is doing. Every time they add another couple $1 trillion, more than the $1.2 trillion that we waste every year anyway, money that we are in deficit every year for anyway. No, this is extra money that they are just burning like a bonfire. And it's burning your pocket. It's making things more expensive for you. They don't tell you that. They don't worry about that, but that is the fact. Tony mentions 100% true. They want the free coverage of BLM writers and Antifa right. Wow, there is a delay. There is definitely a delay in what I am saying and what's going out. And I am currently 300% over the required signal quality. So I apologize for that. But yeah, they do want the free coverage, but they don't want to talk about the real issues, nor do they want you to comment. They don't want you to speak up. I do. So again, the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget mentioned that we're very likely going to have even higher inflation than what we had before. In addition, they mentioned that because we keep doing all these stimuluses, People are relying on it. By the way, if you're unemployed right now, which 10.2 million Americans are, which is about 6.6% unemployment, with a real unemployment rate as per U.S. debt clock, which is the U6, which shows that about 11.7% of Americans actually are either unemployed or underemployed. They can't get enough to survive. And with all these stimuluses, you're on average making about $17 an hour staying home. If you get unemployment plus the bonus check for the unemployment, you're actually making about $17 an hour versus going to work, and the average person in America makes about $10.22. You're making 70% more staying at home. Now imagine when they stop giving out these stimulus checks, when they cut off the bonus money that comes with the unemployment checks. All of a sudden, people are going to lose that $7 an hour minimum. That's if they can get back to work. Because, again, 30% of businesses have already closed, with an indication that another 40% of businesses may close in the future. So imagine what happens when they cut off that spigot. How many people are going to just lose their... We already have 10 million people who are in evictions right now. And those evictions cost about $1,257 per month. Imagine what's going to happen to those people when they suddenly just stop giving a stimulus check and they can't pay off their rent. That's why they kicked the can. Those people were supposed to have the money and pay off their rent, their back due rent, on March 1st, or they would be evicted. And Biden came out and changed it again with a wave of his magic wand, signing an executive order, 42 of them, actually more, and he moved the date to October 1st. It was October 1st that he moved it to. It's crazy. It is just crazy. Tony mentions, any word on the rumor? You're talking about the Mississippi shooting? And no, I haven't seen any credible source at this moment. I do keep checking back as we're talking. And Tony mentions, I heard also King Cuomo is to begin allowing nursing home visits to residents. Yes, I did see that. And he did authorize that, which is, again, another distraction. See, I'm trying to help. That's Governor Cuomo trying to say, I'm trying to help. By the way, it's not just Governor, I may pick on Governor Cuomo because he's my governor, but there's also California Governor Newsom doing exactly the same thing. Governor Whitmer in Michigan doing exactly the same thing. There's about half a dozen states in Pennsylvania, Governor Wolf doing similar things. I mean, the new Secretary General came out of Pennsylvania and did exactly what Cuomo did to the nursing home and had the same kind of nursing home deaths. And again, hid that number too. It is believed, it is alleged, it has not been reviewed because Pennsylvania won't let that be reviewed. But the same thing. In fact, the Surgeon General, the new Surgeon General from Pennsylvania under Biden, took her mother out of the nursing homes so that they could put in elderly people into nursing homes and die. So that was in Pennsylvania. So when I bring up Cuomo, he's just the biggest example in a state that has some of the biggest press. But it's not just New York. This is the exact same thing, almost word for word, in Michigan with Governor Whitmer. Same thing in California with Governor Newsom. In Pennsylvania with Governor Wolf. These are happening everywhere. And these are the same problems. And it's not going to end because, again, like I mentioned, on the horizon, it's just been announced, there is the Russian bird flu, H5N8, that is coming out, and that will be the next thing. So let me ask you guys, Do you want to talk about Texas freezing, or do you want to talk about reparations? What is it which one do you think is a bigger deal? Which one is more annoying to you guys? Anyone, either the first comment or the most comments, whichever one, and that's what we'll go to next. I want to see what you guys have to say, because this is a conversation with you. And by the way, if you disagree, you are more than welcome to comment on Facebook, on Twitter, on Google. That's why we do this every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have people who check in from not just, we see Washington State, New York State. I know there are people who are watching the show in Colorado, Florida, Texas. And of course, we also have many friends who are over in the UK and Great Britain. We have people who watch the show in Germany, Canada, Peru. Hello, Eduardo. I'm Eduardo Dibos, great friend of mine. Good man, down in Florida. And by the way, there are some great people that we were talking to on Friday, and I hope they're watching this as well. It's the Black Friday podcast. You can see it on YouTube under Black Friday NFS, I believe it is. Bear with me a second. I want to make sure I get that right. They are, where are they? I thought I had that up. It was on my watch list. I'm trying to find them. It's a great program because it's younger students, well, college students and younger people who are in college, and they, nope, didn't come through. And they're talking about some great issues that are going on affecting everyone. I don't see it. I will put it in the description at the end of the show on YouTube, so that you can see them. And they're every Friday, I believe it was at 7 o'clock that they do their program. So definitely check it out. But, I knew there was something else I wanted to tell you guys about. And there it is. The other thing I wanted to mention, a friend of mine, you may have seen some of my earlier episodes, Adam Ate the Apple. Can you see it? Yeah. Adam Ate the Apple. They just got their new album out. That I don't get paid. That's just, they're my friends. They've been on the program before. Dan Polkorak, he's the lead singer of the band. He's been on this program. He's done interviews with us. He's talked with us and you on a Sunday chat. And we've heard on some of our episodes, we play his music. And so I just wanted to make sure people knew their new album, If You Get a Peg, You Get a Parrot, just came out. Do check that out. Let me know if you like it. And we may play some of that later, either today or in some upcoming episodes. So come on, folks. Don't be bashful. Who wants to talk about reparations? Don't you want to know if you're going to get free money? Well, you won't if you're not black. But, free money. You definitely won't if you're white, or Hispanic, or Asian, Native Americans. And by the way, reparations have done such a wonderful job for Native Americans, American Indians. They're doing so great. The reparations, thank God there's casinos, because reparations done wonders for them, but it's going to be the cure for the black people. Matter of fact, that's it. I decided I'm going to talk about reparations. And YouTube, right on, well, not YouTube, it's actually Facebook and Twitter, right on. I started mentioning it and I watched the numbers plummet. Let's talk about reparations, because it makes no sense. And I was just bringing it up. And so here we see reparations for American descendants of persons enslaved in the United States and their potential impact on COVID-19 transmission. And as part of working out how can we help the black community with COVID, the answer is give them reparations. This is stupid. This is as stupid as the waste of money that is coming out of the $1.9 trillion COVID-19 relief. We are wasting money and putting it in the wrong places. We're talking about wasting hundreds of billions of dollars, and now they're talking about they want to give you reparations. Now, I saw this. This was on Facebook, and you're going to say, well, Mike, that's just some random picture there. How do you know that that's actually part of the actual subject? Because I do research. And it's actually part, to show you, it is actually part of a social science and medicine. It was on February 9th. It was made available February 9th, 2021. Reparations for American descendants of persons enslaved in the United States, in other words, slavery, and their potential impact on COVID-19 transmission. And in the highlights is exactly what you see. Black Americans are suffering disproportionately because of COVID-19, because they live in cities. And cities have dense populations. And where we see dense populations, we see higher COVID-19 rates. This disparity is driven by structural racism. I just disproved that because I don't think Italy is a highly diverse, it's not America. Italy is not nearly as diverse as America is, and they had insanely high numbers of COVID-19 deaths and people getting contagious, contracting COVID-19. So that is just stupidly wrong. The potential health impacts of racial justice interventions are rarely explored because they don't work. Reparations for Black Americans would have decreased their COVID-19 risk. That is a lie. A reparative program would also have decreased the contagion for the population at large, the contagious nature of COVID-19. That is a lie. COVID-19 does not check out your income bracket. It is not connected or nor directed by the IRS. That is a lie. And it is not structural racism because everywhere where we see high density populations within cities versus smaller towns or rural areas, you will see a higher incidence of COVID-19. That doesn't mean everywhere is going to be New York City. But it does mean that if you take New York City and compare it to Binghamton, New York, we don't have the same incidence rate. You're going to compare Italy, Milan versus one of the outlying villages, it's not going to be the same. If you look at Tokyo versus one of the smaller villages and towns in Japan, you're not going to have the same incidence level. This is true everywhere. You go to London and you're looking at that versus North Hampshire, that's not going to be the same numbers. And if I'm wrong about that, please, those people in, I just mentioned Japan, Italy, and the United Kingdom, and if I'm wrong, please do tell me if those numbers are wrong. But as I understand it, as all the reporting has been, if you're in the major population city versus being in one of the smaller towns, you're more likely to get COVID-19 in the bigger cities. It has nothing to do with racism. Tony mentions, brother, this signal is hardcore. Broadcasting is buffering madly here. I know. And again, it's not coming from me. This is coming from YouTube. This is coming from Facebook. It's coming from Twitter, mostly on Facebook and mostly on Twitter. They are seriously trying to stop me from being heard. Don't worry. You can go to YouTube and you can see the entire video there, and there should be no buffering on that. If you have to, you can see it after the show, and there is no buffering. But let me mention. So this is insane that we hear people talking about reparations in the same breath as COVID-19, that they are somehow connected and somehow you're going to be better off. That is a lie. It is just a lie. COVID is a disease, it's a virus, it floats around, and if you may or may not get infected, it has nothing to do with what's in your pocketbook. And it doesn't have to do with whether you're black or white. It's not. It's about whether you live in cities or not. It's about your personal health. And if you are poor, yes, you tend to have worse health, which may or may not help you get COVID, but it's not because of the color of your skin. COVID is not racist. There may be a lot of things that are racist in this world, in particular, Democrats like Representative Presley, Representative Ilhan Omar, Representative Rashida Tlaib, based on the things that they have said, especially Tlaib and Omar, based on the things they have said, people in BLM, and what they've said about white people and how white people are born with guilt. I mean, those are racist, in my opinion. Now, if you think I'm wrong, please do type a message, do call into the show, and let me know how I'm wrong on that. But I strongly believe that those are racist. But I don't think COVID is. And it's definitely not a matter of structural racism, whether or not you get COVID. That's just stupid. That is fear-mongering on the same level as Governor Cuomo using COVID-19 to make a book to get an Emmy. He used people's deaths to get an Emmy. And this paper from Dr. Eugene Richardson and Dr. Malik, Momin Malik, and William Darity, their supposition is, okay, we're going to use social justice to push COVID-19 and use it to get what we want, because they couldn't get it any other way. And this is just stupid. I mean, and there was this one portion, and they're comparing Louisiana to South Korea, which is just stupid, because, again, diversity, not just population, but diversity of that population too. There's a lot of factors that just don't make sense. But more importantly, it was here. They mentioned that a program of reparations has the potential to reduce several variables that determine COVID-19 conductivity or contagion in such a segregated society. These include reducing significantly for black people, decreasing the overcrowded housing. So if you have reparations, you won't live in the cities that you live in, which is a lie. A lot of rich people live in big cities. New York City is filled with a lot of rich people. You live in New York City, you could be a millionaire, you can still get COVID. You can get it on the subway. Millionaires take the subway too. Keanu Reeves takes the subway on a regular basis. He's a massive star, and I like him. He's a great guy. Lots of them. The lead singer of Midnight Oil, an Australian prime minister, met him. It was in the 1990s. I was down in Midtown Manhattan. We were crossing the street, 200 people one way, 200 people another way. I stopped in the middle of the street in downtown Manhattan. And he's well off. He's a good rock and roll singer, and he became a prime minister. He was living well. He took the same subways as everyone else. This makes no sense. Oh, because you get reparations, and we're going to give you a check, then, hey, no problem. We gave you a check. So now you are blocked. You got a shield from COVID. This is stupid. Black individuals would not be forced as frequently into high-risk frontline work with both attendant exposure and psychological stress. The psychological stress is from the fact that every day for a year, we have heard that you are going to die from COVID. That's all we've heard from the news media. You're going to die from COVID, which is not true. Overwhelmingly not true. Not in the United States, not in anywhere in the world. Even most African countries that have absolutely dirt for medical health are not dying in this epidemic like they're saying that we're supposed to have. It's not the Black Plague. And so, with that being said, They say frontline workers. So the psychological stress is news media. That's government. That's people using COVID-19 to get things they could never get otherwise. And the attendant exposure. That means working retail. Guess what? Yes, not a lot of rich people work retail, but a lot of people are person to person. Sales does that person to person. Your electricians, your plumbers, your carpenters. God, we need more of them. If you are not sure what you're going to do in your life, become an electrician, a machinist, a plumber, a carpenter. America needs it, and you are going to make bank within 10 years. You want to talk about the next wave of millionaires, billionaires? Look at the people who are working in trade skills. But they're not all. So to say that, well, poor people are going to be on, just because you're black doesn't mean you're poor. Stop being Joe Biden. Poor people are just as good as white people. I'm sorry. No, that's a false statement, and it is the same thing you were saying in this statement. They also go on to say it would decrease slightly the account of people's ability to prevent modalities like masks, and you black people are too poor to buy a mask. That's what they're saying. You're too poor to buy a mask. You're too poor to not work at the counter at McDonald's, and you're stressed out because you watch the news, and you don't have enough money. So that's why black people get COVID more. That is stupid. And I am debunking each of those things one by one for you right here. Now, if you think I am wrong about this, I would love to hear that. But I can tell you that if we were to put other people in those same scenarios, they would or would not get COVID just as much as they already do. And giving someone a check doesn't make them better. I've actually done the math. If you were to take everyone in all black people in America, you give them reparations for approximately $32 trillion, works out to about $3,000 per person. And $3,000 per person is not going to suddenly make you move into a new condo or buy a brand new house. It's not going to build you a new multi-billion-dollar business. It's just a check. It's the same thing as what we're seeing now with the COVID-19 disbursements. No one is suddenly getting rich off of $1,400. I know Nancy Pelosi thinks that it's the same thing as being on unemployment, and unemployment is a stimulus, and the COVID payment is also a stimulus. It's not. It is not, and it's not turning people into multi-billionaires. Neither will reparations. It is a lie, and they are using the fear of COVID to stop people from thinking and to make sure that they are both. You have the people who say, free money, give it to me now, and you have the people who are like, oh my God, we've got to do something about COVID, and you got the BLM people all coming together and saying, oh yeah, give black people extra money. That's not the answer. It doesn't stop the underlying division in this nation based on race, which we are seeing mostly from the far left, not Democrats, the far left, progressives, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, the BLM crowd, the Antifa crowd. They're the extremists, and they're pushing this, and giving them a check is not going to make them suddenly stop. You know, I had a wonderful conversation with someone recently about it, and they mentioned to me, oh, Mike, so, you know, what are they going to do? They want to give people more housing. They want to give them better housing. Like this is saying right here, and I'm going to get to the comments in 1 second. They say, oh, I want to give you more housing. That's the number one thing. You need more housing. So they're going to make new ghettos for black people to go to. We already have housing complexes. We already did that in the 1960s. We already have these projects. That's why they're called projects, the projects, where everyone's trying to escape out of. We have projects. They did this already. Get a bunch of projects. They're basically ghettos, and we take all the people who are in the ghetto now, and we put them in new ghettos, and we call them condos. Because who's going to, matter of fact, that's what Friday, Black Night, that young group I was talking to you about, and I'll share the link, they were talking about this. So it's going to be a condo. So we take you out of the projects and we put you into a bunch of condos, which will become the new projects, because the mentality of the people going from one to the other did not change. Their lifestyle did not change, and they have no value. You just gave them new stuff. They didn't earn it. They didn't buy this through their sweat and tears. You just gave it to them. Why wouldn't you just give them more? I guarantee you BLM will ask for more. So it's not helping. It doesn't give you anything. It doesn't give you knowledge of how to own a house. It doesn't give you the knowledge of being able to control your finances and to invest. It doesn't teach you how to have a skill like an electrician, a carpenter, a machinist. It isn't giving you anything to benefit you. It is just a material. Here's something. Might as well have a carrot. It doesn't make a difference. It is not a benefit. I don't know. Maybe that doesn't make sense to anyone. I don't know. Let me look at some of the comments that I wasn't able to listen to before. We have, so everyone wanted to talk about reparations, so I am. And Tony says, strongly disagree with reparations. Nobody owned any slaves in over 100 years, and my grandparents never made anyone work the farm who didn't want to be there. Sorry if this seems out of touch, but not sorry, and I'm not paying. Slight difference there. There is no question that slaves built the foundations of everything in the United States. The nation was created through slave labor. That is true. There is no question on that. Is reparations the answer to that? Not really. Because again, it's giving you something for no reason. Here's something, I'm just going to throw this material object at you, and then it's over? It's going to end? I mean, really, let's think this through. So if they give every black person in America who is, and again, we don't know what that means. I mean, where is the cutoff line? Are you going to guarantee, do they have to guarantee that they were in America for generations going back to the 1860s? I mean, where do you cut that off? How are we supposed to know? Or is it just because, hey, look, I got a tan, give me the money? But whatever way, if we're just giving out this money, let me ask you, what else happens? Then we can never talk about reparations again? Is it all over? I guarantee not, because when they spend that $3,000, buy a brand new TV, they buy new clothes, they buy a new car, they're not buying houses with it. Most will not buy houses with it. Let's be real. And say we give them a condo with it. And what happens when the money's gone? And then what? I mean, it's a good question. And then what? But yes, reparations did exist. The nation exists because of slavery to an extent. And it is something to acknowledge, but I don't think this is the process. Michael Bowie mentions reparations is just more identity politics dividing us further. Yes, it is. At a time when we are very divided in this nation, and we're told that white people are inherently evil, which is just a terrible thing to say about anyone in any race. It is a terrible thing, where we're watching people like Gina Carano being railroaded for the mere fact that she had a political belief and said, hey, the Germans in the 1940s attacked their own people because they were told those people weren't human. And we're hearing that now. You know, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has said publicly that she wants to have re-education camps because people's personal beliefs. That is a problem. So if you say, I don't believe that the answer to reparations is give someone a check, then what? They're going to put you in a re-education camp? This is the logic that's out there. This is a problem. Mary mentions, this country is just trying to cause racial tensions. Yes, they are, because there is power in that. There is political power in that. Because what goes with it is, if I have the racial tensions go up. You're counting on me as your politician to get you free stuff and to punish other people and take their stuff and give it to you, which is also called redistributing the wealth, which Obama has championed, besides, as I mentioned, re-education with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez pushing that, and now we have reparations. Tony mentions, oh, the irony, I'm half Irish and Iroquois. That's funny. Amen. I'm catching up to the comments here, folks. Mary mentions wasting tons of money. I wish waste with the show trial, waste with Pelosi now wanting to hire privately to prosecute President Trump. While we are suffering trillions in debt, let's just create more. Yeah. Jesse. Hey, Jesse. It's good to see you. He said hello. Mary mentions now they will blame COVID for everything. They will need to follow the money trail, Fauci's connection. Wow, there is a big delay on the signal. Mary thinks I'm talking about common sense. Tony says it's not just Dr. Death. It's Gates, Schumer, Pelosi, and a few others. Let's not forget the Zuckerberg. Yeah, YouTube is buffering. Wow, YouTube almost never buffers. Thank you for letting me know that, Mavis. So they really don't like what I am saying right now. Anne mentions, your broadcast just got totally messed up. I'm praying that your voice will continue to be able to be heard. These are dangerous times with censorship, and we need voices like yours. I have to tell you, my signal right now, I'm just checking it out. I am literally 400% above what I need. I had a dip and I was at 250% above the recommended levels that I need to get the signal out to you guys. And I have to believe that I'm talking about subjects Facebook and Twitter and Google hate. They do not want to have a black person, a person of color, talk about reparations and say this is a dumb idea. They don't want you to hear that COVID-19, whether you wear 5 masks or you wear 1 mask, you pretty much have the same odds of getting it. And while you should take care of yourself, you shouldn't be terrified that it's the next black plague. And they don't want you to know, oh, the next thing they're going to be amping up and terrifying you with and telling you why you can't speak and why you can't go to work and why you can't get outside your home is going to be the Russian bird flu. That's why they are suppressing this. Mind you, this is about free speech. You can tell me whatever you think. We are live on all of these systems, and the phone number is 607-242-1582. You can call in at any time. I am open to the left. That's why last week I was told dozens of times by the same 2 people that I was soulless because they didn't agree. You know what? It's free speech. They can say it. They couldn't prove it. It was a personal attack. That's all they had. But that's why we have free speech. And they don't want you to have this conversation. They don't want you to hear this information. And these are sources, these are their sources. You may have seen it on Facebook, but this is the source. And I am debunking their so-called logic and science here because it doesn't make any sense. So I want you to be sure. And if you're wondering, gee, well, Mike, reparations will take people out of poverty. No, it won't. Here goes a report, and this is from, who is this? I want to make sure I get the group right. This is from the Office of Human Services Policy, the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Planning and Evaluation, and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services as of March 2016. This will still be accurate for what I'm going to point out today. And that is, you can go through the entire chart after chart after chart, but what you're going to see is this. Number of people official poverty by race and ethnic origin, 1974, 1984, 1994, 2004, and 2014. This is the war on poverty, which we have thrown over $23 trillion. We have spent since 1965 $23 trillion, almost the amount of money that we have wasted in the government, the national debt, $23 trillion to fight poverty. And we have more poverty today than we had in 1974 for whites, for blacks, for Asians, for Hispanics. There is more poverty, more people in poverty today than in 1965 when they started the war on terror. Reparations won't help. We can throw $23 trillion at it and it won't help. Because the government doesn't know what it's doing. The government is inefficient. The government have leaders that are there for their political gain and not your benefit. And if you don't understand that, here is the war on poverty for you from the government itself, telling you that more people are in poverty now than in 1965, and they've been fighting the war on poverty for 5 decades, and they can't get it right because they're focused on the wrong thing. By the way, and you think, let's look at it just on the short term. From 1989 to 2019, poverty, 12.3%, 12.8%. Basically, it's a flat line. Yes, there were dips in between, and it got as high under the Obama administration as 15.9% of America, but it's telling you, we have more people in poverty today than in 1965. Throwing money at the problem does not fix the problem. Reparations will not work. Throwing money at it is not it. Mary mentions Cuomo sure did use a book for a book and the enemy. I have seen that there is a movement to have it taken back. What, the book or the Emmy? Yes, they should take Cuomo's Emmy. He lied. He killed people. They should also take all the proceeds from the book and give it to split it up amongst all 15,000, for all the 15,000, 16,000 people that died. They should take that money and split it amongst all those families and have Cuomo pay more. And I say Cuomo, not New York State, because Cuomo did it. It was his decision. He lied. He's the corrupt individual. Not to say New York State isn't it's a horrible government system. We have Donna Lopato, Assemblywoman Donna Lopato, still to this day won't say anything about the nursing home deaths in New York State, because she's a Democrat. We have lots of Democrats. We have the overwhelming majority of Democrats will not say anything. What is it? 10 Democrats have come out and said that Cuomo should be impeached or removed from office because he killed New York City residents and then lied about it. And the rest of the New York State legislature, the Democratic portion of it, which controls it, they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to say a word. Because politics. And if you think that politics isn't involved in reparations, I don't know what you're thinking. Because it's part of redistributing the wealth. It's from Obama. It's from BLM. The socialists, the Democratic socialists, according to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or as I like to tell you, the communists, because that's what they are, want to take your money. They want to take someone else's stuff and give it to other people as they decide it should happen. That's government over the people, and that's what reparations is. It will not solve anything because the government doesn't want to fix a problem. When was the last time in your lifetime that the government fixed anything? As I just showed you with the poverty, government in 50 years has never fixed the poverty. Never. Not for Hispanics, not for Asians, Asian Americans, or Pacific Islanders, blacks, whites. They haven't fixed poverty for anyone in 5 decades and $23 trillion later. And you think they're going to get reparations right? If you're wondering why the COVID relief process is completely screwed up, we can't even get vaccinations out properly. Yes, we're getting over 1 million or more out per day, as set up by Trump and continued by Biden. Fantastic. And they still screw up that process massively. We have huge amounts of waste. In some states, like New York State and some others, there are somewhere between 25 to 50% of all the COVID vaccines are being wasted. And you're telling me that reparations, as decided by the government, will be the solution and fix it all? No, it's not. Mary mentions exactly more projects. Yes, they are more projects. Tony mentions everyone is responsible for their own future. You have to work for it. You have to want it, but you have to want it. It's a mindset. If you believe you are oppressed, then you have to change your mindset. Yes. You know what we should be focusing on? Equality of opportunity. You've heard it from Jordan Peterson. You've heard me say it before. If you want to talk about reparations, then ensure equality of opportunity, not of the outcome. Because if you're setting up equality of the outcome, that means you have no freedom and you have no choice. And the government is in charge of it. And as I just mentioned, and as I have just proven again, government screws it up. Because government doesn't know how to do anything except have a big military and take stuff from people. That's it. You may think I'm wrong, but that's why I'm saying. And by the way, if you don't make the show, or because we are being heavily shadow banned right now by Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and you see the program afterwards, please write in the comments. Tell me if you think I'm wrong. If you're watching the show now, call in. Tell me. We've got about 15 more minutes for the show, and I'm looking at the comments. I'm trying to keep up. But if you missed the show live and you want to respond to this, please do. I look forward to hearing the comments. If you agree, if you disagree, if there's some part of it that I misunderstood or I didn't get right, I would want to hear this. Oh, I missed, Mary mentioned that she thought it would be very demeaning to be just given stuff, to just give people money, to just give them a condo. Of course it is. It's meant to be demeaning. Because it's not about helping people, it's making them dependent. Because you got to also remember, if the government can give it to you, the government can take it from you because it's not yours. If the government gives you, if they decide, well, as part of reparations, every black person in America will get a condo. Really? We're all going to get condos. Okay, where's the condo? Where are you moving me to? See, that's a good question, isn't it? Oh, we're going to give everyone land. Where? In the middle of a swamp? In the middle of a desert? Is it going to be up north? Are we going to take the entire state of North Dakota and turn it into the reparations for blacks? And everybody in America, every black person in America that, well, period, they're saying every black person, but I'm saying everyone who has a descendant of a slave in America, you're all going, you can go to North Dakota and claim your piece of land. Is that what we're going to say? What if I don't want to live in North Dakota? But the government has given me the reparation. They said, go to North Dakota. Your land is there. Your 40 acres and a mule is waiting for you now. Or the modern version, we're going to give you a condo and a car. Okay, but you got to go to North Dakota and live there. I don't want to live in North Dakota. Although it's probably a better state. Actually, every state is better than New York State because we're 50th in business friendliness. Because we have governors that don't know what they're doing, and they govern based on emotion with emergency powers given by a state legislature that is single-party rule and is terrified of saying anything against anyone in their own party, even when they are caught red-handed. And I truly believe that a state that does that is not going to help anyone with reparations. They're going to do whatever the party line is, and they're going to do it blindly, and it doesn't matter if it helps or if it hurts. And given how government works, it means it's going to hurt a lot. But has anyone considered that? What if they say, yeah, you got your land. Go up to North Dakota. Go to a swamp. Go to a desert. They give you that land instead. What are you going to say? Oh, well, that land's not good enough. Wait a minute. It's reparations. We gave you something that you didn't have before. Oh, we're going to give you a condo. Who's paying for the condo? Who's going to keep the condo up? Is the government responsible for upkeep on that building and that condo forever? Who makes the rules and who governs that condo? Because condominiums have governing bodies that, yeah, it's like small government. It's your housing community, and they have rules and guidelines. Who makes those rules and guidelines? The government, because they're paying the bills? How long is the American people going to be on the hook for these condos? And what about the cars and the car maintenance? These are the things that we really need to ask, and no one is addressing, and it doesn't solve the problem. And see, when you ask these questions and you have to ask, well, what's the answer? They don't want to talk about it because it's a problem. And the problem gets bigger and worse the more you understand what the problem is. And the answer, because the answer is never just throw money at it. At least that's how I feel about it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just don't get it. Maybe I just don't understand. But I think I do. I mean, I didn't grow up rich. I didn't grow up somewhere fancy. I grew up in an apartment in the Bronx. My mother did a fantastic job. Raised my brothers and sisters. Everyone's got a degree except me. Yeah, I don't have a college degree. Nothing new. But I study, I'm intelligent, I went to college, I've traveled the world, I speak a couple of languages. I've done well for myself, military as well. Brothers and sisters doing fantastically well, thank God. Living good jobs, having houses, all doing well. My mom did a fantastic job. We grew up in the Bronx, and we were far from wealthy. Far. And they're saying, well, don't worry. We'll fix everything. We'll just give you a check. How would that help me get through college? Oh, it'll pay a bill. Okay, fantastic. It's not going to study for me. I'm going to give you a house. Fantastic. You didn't teach me how to fix the house, how to maintain the house, how to finance and own the house, how to prepare for things like it needs a new roof. You got to change the boiler. You need new dryers and heaters. You got to fix the driveway. Did you think of all those things? What about the cost for all of that? What about the self-respect, having known that you earned it? I bought my house. I earned it. I'm spending the money on the mortgage. It's mine. The government didn't give it to me, and the government can't take it from me because it's mine. And I know how to do it. And if for some reason I were to lose it, I know the process. I know what it takes to get another house. I know what it is to go to college. I know what it is to travel to another country, in my case, going to the Soviet Union, to live there for a year and a half, to learn the language, to live with the people. The government didn't give me any of that. The government didn't send me there. I went there for private business. I learned that. I have a pride about that. And the government can never give me pride. You can't get pride because someone gave it to you. You can't be accomplished and proud of your accomplishments because someone gave it to you. I know, Mike. YouTube has been terrible, and because they don't like the subjects I'm talking about right now. I am talking about serious issues, and I'm not doing it in 30 seconds. I'm not doing what the national news media does to you every day, giving you somewhere between 30 seconds and a minute and a half to try and absorb this big issue. Look at what we've covered. I'm showing you reports from the United States government itself showing you that poverty, the war on poverty, does not work, that they have failed and spent $23 trillion in that failure, your taxes. Part of the reason why things cost so much is because of their failure, the inflation that they created, the devaluing of the dollar by wasting your money on the war on poverty, and something that they're looking to increase with the COVID relief, which most of that won't go to you either. Or rather, a good portion of that is being wasted and not going to you either. I'm talking about the Russian Asian flu. They don't want to talk to you about that. They're not making a big deal about that. They don't want to talk to you about the shooting that went on in Missouri at the American Legion Post. They don't want to tell you about that. They don't want you to think, gee, why isn't the media promoting this as a mass shooting like they always do? Maybe because there isn't any mention of a semi-automatic rifle. Maybe because a good Samaritan, a good guy with a gun, stopped the bad guy. Maybe because it involves our veterans and it was political. I'm not saying it was any of those things. I'm saying maybe. Because they don't want to tell you about Gary Sinise and the fact that he has launched the Avalon Network to take care of our military veterans and those who are afflicted with PTSD and our frontline first responders. They don't want to talk about those things. And that's sad, because the media does want to talk about you have to wear a mask and you can't go outside and you can't see your friends and you can't talk to people in real life. You can't date. You can't date. You're stuck in your little cube and you're a prisoner and you're going to be there until we tell you to get out. That's what the government is telling you. And the government has more power than you because you don't matter, because you don't get to speak up. And if you do speak up, they're going to attack you because you are going to be some kind of extremist, that they're going to say that they have to fire like Gina Carano, that they're going to try and arrest you, and they're going to call you an insurrectionist, and they're going to throw the full weight and power of the United States government against you. Whether you were there or not, because I have had many people ask me if I was there and tell me that I'm an insurrectionist, even though I wasn't there. I was here with you on this program doing a live stream. Because the government doesn't, at this point, the government is corrupt. There are individuals in the government that aren't corrupt. The government system is corrupt. And that doesn't mean racist, it means corrupt. There is a difference. And because I'm willing to say that, they are terrified right now. The best thing you can do is subscribe. The best thing you can do is to like and to share this. Even with people who will hate it. Even with people who will say, I hate what you have to say. Mike, you're soulless. You're an insurrectionist. Great. But listen to what I'm saying. Look at the sources that I am providing and then take a moment to absorb that information and say, why isn't anyone else talking about this? Why is no one asking the questions and having the conversation like I'm having with you right now? Why won't they have a conversation with you? Why won't they give this information more than 30 seconds, a minute and a half on your national news media to talk to you about this, to point out the bills, to show you the actual bills like we have done before, like we constantly do, so that you can look it up, so that you can know what it says? Why don't they do that? Because they want power over you. And I want free speech. I want you to tell me whatever you think. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me that I missed a source, that there's more information than what I've been able to find. Tell me that I have an imperfect conclusion or I'm not understanding the issue, and explain to me how I'm missing something that's critical. Tell me how the government has fought poverty and that there are less people in poverty today than in 1965. That the percentage of people who are in poverty is lower today than it was in 1965. Because the government is telling me that isn't true. That there are more people in poverty than there were in 1965. That there is the same percentage of people who are in poverty as in 1965. Please, let's talk about these things and have an honest conversation. Cuomo owes reparations to nursing home residents' families. Use the proceeds from the book and strip his Emmy. I agree. I'm used to the fact that there's a delay right now, so. Wow. The delay has got to be about 10, 15 minutes. It's ridiculous. The playback should be fine. Mary mentions, yes, split that money for the families. The movement is to take the Emmy back. Yeah. And why aren't Democrats across the nation, not just the New York legislature, but across the nation, why aren't they saying, hey, let's take that back? Is that crazy to say when he got caught red-handed? It is a proven fact. It is an admission by his own staff that that's what they did. And yet, Democrats like Assemblywoman Donna Lopardo will not speak up. I don't understand it. Tony mentions that this is entirely the precursor for total communist agenda and plays out the World War II Germany playbook, in his opinion. It is, well, actually, I would say it's more like the perestroika and the 1917 rise of the communists in Soviet Tsarist Russia. And also similar to what happened with Mao in his Red Book. Matter of fact, it probably has a lot more analogies to Mao in his Red Book than anything, where the youth were trained and educated by communists in schools to then be taken over. And that's, well, similar was done in 1917, but we saw that with Mao. You take control of the kids, and then those kids go out and have the revolution for you. And they're perfectly fine with everything that goes with it. And all the lives that are destroyed because of it. It's terrifying. And I truly believe reparations is just another step in that process. You're promising people free stuff, but you're not mentioning, oh, there's a cost that goes with it. Whether that's a condo in North Dakota or the money that we're going to give you is going to be worthless, or the other restrictions that inevitably will tie that to a political philosophy that you have to continue to support this or that political individual, that politician. Otherwise, you will never get more of whatever it is they're going to give you, whatever the strings that are tied to that. And that's a problem. That's a big problem. Mary mentions, yes, equality of opportunity is exactly right. Give a man a fish, he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime, which is a Republican ideal. I know it's from the Bible, but it's a Republican ideal. It's a conservative ideal. I believe in it strongly. I will be happy to help anyone who's starving. I've been homeless twice. I know what it feels like to be homeless. And the thing that helped me to stop being homeless wasn't that someone gave me money for cigarettes or gave me food. Although there is a wonderful Catholic charity out in California, in LA. If you are on the steps of the church on Orange Street, please go there first thing in the morning. I don't know if that program's still going on right now, but I know there was a program. Every morning they would provide breakfast. It helped a lot when I was homeless on the streets. It gives you enough food to start your day. But it was the fact that someone gave me a job and said, you have an opportunity to go and work. And I worked and I got myself back on my feet. And today I now own my house or pay the mortgage on it. That's the difference. They didn't just give me stuff. They helped. They said, hey, we're not going to let you starve to death. And that gave me the opportunity to go out and get a job. And the job I was at, thankfully, worked with me, understood the situation that I was homeless. And I worked and I put together money. And a couple of people helped me, let me stay in a house for a while till I got enough money so I can get an apartment, so I can get myself back on my feet. It's not new news. I've told people this before. I've done speeches on this before about homelessness. Matter of fact, I do one every year at the SUNY Broome College, where I am a strong advocate for their homeless sleep out, the homeless awareness sleep out. Every year I do that. I go out and I speak and I tell kids about what it is to be homeless, my experience in being homeless and the process to get out of that homelessness. And it has nothing to do with someone saying, oh, we're going to give you stuff. It's I worked for it. And because I worked for it, it means that much more to me. And doesn't mean you can't help someone, but it definitely means you're not going to do the work for them. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. Tony mentions North Dakota. Hell yeah! I gotta keep my guns. Well, yeah, there is that. Yeah, they do believe in the Second Amendment. That may be one of the conditions. Send all the black people to North Dakota, but they don't get any guns. I don't know. Remember, there is, if it's a condo, there is a housing committee, and that housing committee may be run by the government, and the government, which happens to have a lot of Democrats, if they're in charge, they're going to say no Second Amendment for you. So don't count on having the guns, Tony. Not if you're in that condo association. Mary mentions, riddle me this. What do we do that are both black and white, which are many now? Do they get reparations or are the white privileged? I don't know. It is a privilege to be black and get reparations. Not quite the same thing as they mean, but I get it. But I can remember back in the 70s, when I was a kid. I'm 50, I'm about to be 53. And I remember as a kid, the things that we have today were things that we were hoping one day to get because we were coming out of the civil rights movement and there was a change in America. It was slow, and you want to talk about racism. In the racism I went through in the 70s was nothing compared to what happened in the 60s, the 50s, the 40s, and beyond. Before, I should say. There's no kind of comparison. But I can tell you, 2013 was the goal. 2021 is the goal. Where we are now is the goal we were looking for in the 70s. And we didn't think we'd get it in that lifetime. We didn't think that in my lifetime we'd hit that. Maybe when I hit 80, not when I hit 50. And now we're there. And we're being told, oh, but it's completely racist. It's worse now than in... No, it's not. No, it's not. A black kid can go out and date a white woman, go and put the picture live stream on Facebook, and no one blinks an eye. I had a family friend who had to move from North Carolina, a man and a woman. One was black, one was white. And they had to run from North Carolina up to New York State because of racism, because they were married. They stayed married until death. One became a widow. And they were together for, 40 years? And You want to tell me that you're going through more racism today than that? You can date anyone you want. No one blinks an eye. No one's trying to kill you because you married the wrong person. You had a kid with the wrong person because of the color of their skin. And you want to tell me you have more racism today than then? I don't think so. We had a black president who was reelected, still considered by many to be their hero of a president. Basically the Jesus of walking on water as presidents go. For some people,